Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a room with no doors, only mirrors. In this space, every reflection whispers the same intoxicating secret. You are different, you are special, you are the one the world has been waiting for. This is not a dream of vanity, but a profound, almost religious conviction that your life is governed by a script written in the stars. But as you reach out to touch your reflection, the glass remains cold, and the air grows thin. You are standing at the edge of a psychological precipice that Carl Jung spent a lifetime mapping, a place where the soul's hunger for meaning transforms into a dangerous mirage. The sensation of being the chosen one is the great unsaid epidemic of our modern age. It is a quiet, internal architecture of the mind that builds a pedestal so high it becomes a prison. We see it in the restless youth, in the silent observer who feels superior to the mundane, and in the seeker who wanders from one spiritual peak to another, never finding a place to land. Jung did not see this as a mere quirk of personality. He saw it as a trace of something far more ancient and volatile, the inflation of the ego by the archetypal forces of the unconscious. When the small, fragile I attempts to wear the mantle of a cosmic hero, the weight does not empower us, it crushes our connection to reality. To understand this descent, we must look at the central metaphor of the gilded abyss. Imagine a diver who finds a chest of gold at the bottom of the ocean. Instead of bringing a single coin to the surface to spend in the village, the diver becomes obsessed with the weight of the treasure, refusing to leave the depths. The gold is the archetypal energy, the chosen feeling, and the abyss is the unconscious. The diver is no longer a person. They have become a guardian of a ghost. They feel rich, but they are drowning. This is the code of the chosen one complex. It offers the illusion of divinity at the cost of your humanity. This feeling of being destined for greatness is often a response to a world that feels increasingly mechanical and devoid of soul. When the external world offers no initiation, the psyche creates its own. It constructs a narrative where your suffering is not random, but a test. Where your isolation is not a wound, but a badge of honor. But there is a hidden price to this psychic alchemy. When you believe you are meant for the extraordinary, the ordinary becomes unbearable. The simple act of breathing, of working, of loving another flawed human being feels like a betrayal of your secret mission. You become a ghost haunting your own life, waiting for a trumpet that never sounds. If these words resonate with a frequency you felt but never dared to name, I invite you to step closer. We are building a community of seekers who are tired of the superficial and are brave enough to look into the shadows of their own specialness. This is a space for those who wish to move beyond the mirage and find a truth that is grounded, raw, and real. Join us in this exploration by subscribing, and let us navigate the labyrinth of the psyche together, not as heroes of a myth, but as architects of our own integration. Jung warned that whenever we identify with an archetype, we lose our soul to the collective. We become a mask. The chosen one is perhaps the most seductive mask of all because it feels like a homecoming. It promises that we are not alone, that we are seen by the universe itself. But beneath the mask, the real person, the one who bleeds, fails, and grows, is starving. The question we must face is not whether we are chosen, but what we are avoiding by clinging to that belief. As we move deeper into the mechanism of this complex, we encounter a chilling realization. The very thing we think is saving us might be the anchor that is pulling us into the dark. If you are not the hero of the story, then who are you? And more importantly, are you prepared to meet the person who lives in the shadow of the throne? The architecture of the chosen one complex is not built overnight. It is a slow, silent accretion of psychic layers, a protective fortress constructed by the ego to ward off the cold wind of insignificance. To understand how this gear functions within the human soul, we must look at what Carl Jung described as inflation. Imagine the ego as a small, sturdy vessel navigating the vast, unpredictable ocean of the collective unconscious. Normally, the vessel stays on the surface, keeping a safe distance from the leviathans that dwell in the depths. But inflation occurs when the vessel begins to believe it is the ocean. The boundaries dissolve, and the person is swallowed by an archetype, usually the hero, the prophet, or the savior. This is the alchemy of a psychological trap. When you are possessed by an archetype, you lose your human proportions. You no longer walk, you soar, you no longer speak, you deliver oracles. From the outside, this might look like extreme confidence or even a divine calling, but internally, it is a state of profound possession. The chosen one is no longer a man or a woman with flaws and taxes and laundry. They have become a biological carrier for a myth. Jung warned that this state is inherently unstable. The human psyche is not designed to hold the voltage of a god. When we identify with the specialness of an archetype, we suffer from a spiritual form of decompression, sickness. The higher the ego ascends into the clouds of destiny, the more the actual lived life becomes a barren wasteland. Consider the Puer Aeternus, the eternal youth who lives in a state of provisional existence. This is the modern face of the chosen one. It is the person who refuses to commit to a career, a relationship, or a place, because they are waiting for the great event that will finally reveal their true purpose. They treat their current life as a waiting room, a temporary mirage that doesn't require their full presence. This creates a devastating existential void. Because they are destined for the sun, they refuse to plant seeds in the earth. The result is a life that looks like a series of unfinished symphonies. They are the architects of grand cathedrals that never move past the blueprints, haunted by the unlived life that lingers in the shadow of their grand expectations. In our modern engranage, the mechanical gears of our digital age, this complex is amplified to a fever pitch. We are told by every screen that we are the protagonists of a global drama, that our personal brand is a sacred mission. This creates a toxic synchronicity. In Jungian terms, synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence, but for the person caught in the chosen one complex, everything becomes a sign. A bird flying left, a specific number on a clock, or a chance encounter are all twisted into a code that confirms they stop living in reality and start living in a hall of mirrors where the universe is constantly whispering their name. But this is a lonely religion. If you are the only one who can see the signs, you are essentially trapped in a private myth, unable to truly connect with others who are uninitiated. The shadow of the chosen one is, paradoxically, a deep and terrifying sense of inferiority. The taller the pedestal, the more frightening the ground becomes. This is why those who feel chosen often struggle with paralyzing anxiety. If you are meant to change the world, then making a small mistake at work isn't just an error, it's a cosmic failure. The pressure to be extraordinary becomes an invisible crown of thorns. To maintain the illusion of being special, the psyche must repress anything that is common or weak. Your vulnerability, your need for others, and your simple human limitations are cast into the abyss of the unconscious. But what is repressed does not disappear. It gains weight. It becomes the monster under the throne. We see this mechanism playing out in our most intimate relationships. The chosen one often feels that no one truly gets them, leading to a cycle of isolation and broken connections. They seek a partner who will act as a mirror, reflecting their greatness back to them, rather than a human being who will challenge them. When the partner fails to sustain the mirage, the chosen one retreats further into their internal fortress, convinced that they are simply too advanced for the world around them. It is a tragic alchemy that turns potential into bitterness and connection into a ghost story. As we peel back these layers, we must ask, what happens when the mirage breaks? What happens when the hero realizes they are just a person standing in the rain? The descent from inflation is often brutal, a crash that Jung compared to a spiritual death, but it is only in this wreckage that the true work begins. The chosen one must learn the hardest lesson of all, that the most sacred thing you can be is not a hero, but a whole human being. In our final chapter, we will explore the path of the alchemist, how to take the raw lead of this complex and transform it into the gold of a grounded, authentic existence. We will discover that the real call is not to be special, but to be real. To heal from the chosen one complex is to perform a reverse alchemy. It is the process of taking the intoxicating volatile gases of the spirit and condensing them into the solid, heavy lead of reality. Jung suggested that the goal of the human experience is not perfection, but wholeness. Wholeness, however, is a bitter pill for the inflated ego because it requires us to embrace the very things we spent a lifetime trying to outrun. Our limitations, our commonality, and our terrifyingly beautiful ordinariness. The path out of the gilded abyss begins with the act of psychological grounding, a deliberate dismantling of the architecture of your own myth. The first step in this transformation is to recognize the provisional life for what it is, a sophisticated defense mechanism. You must stop waiting for the trumpet to sound and start listening to the quiet, rhythmic gear of the present moment. Practical alchemy in this sense means shifting your focus from the great destiny to the small task. When you wash a dish, walk the dog, or balance a spreadsheet, you are not betraying your potential. You are reclaiming your humanity from the jaws of an archetype. You are teaching your nervous system that it is safe to be no one in the eyes of the world, so that you may finally become someone in your own skin. This process requires a ruthless inventory of your shadow. You must look at the part of you that feels superior to your neighbors and recognize it as a frightened child wearing a giant S-mask. When you feel the pull of being special, ask yourself what specific human pain that feeling is trying to anesthetize. Are you chosen, or are you just lonely? Are you a prophet, or are you just afraid of the crushing weight of a 9-to-5 existence? Identifying this code allows you to address the wound directly, rather than covering it with the bandages of a cosmic narrative. The trace of the true self is found not in the heights of ecstasy, but in the quiet acceptance of your own flaws. In the laboratory of the soul, Jung spoke of circumambulation, the act of circling the center, instead of a linear climb toward a throne. Imagine your life as a walk around a sacred middle ground. Sometimes you are close to the light, and sometimes you are deep in the shadow of the abyss. Both are necessary. To be whole is to accept that you are both the hero and the villain, the master and the servant, the extraordinary and the utterly mundane. When you stop trying to be the light of the world, you finally have enough energy to light your own hearth. The final stage of this journey is the death of the mirage of the horizon. Many people live their lives looking at the distant line where the sky meets the earth, convinced that their real life begins there. Integration means realizing that there is no there. There is only the soil beneath your feet and the air in your lungs. The true chosen are not those selected by fate for a grand mission, but those who choose, every single day, to show up for the life they actually have. This is the ultimate rebellion against the complex, to find the sacred in the ordinary. As the echoes of the chosen one myth fade, a new silence begins to grow. It is not the empty silence of isolation, but the dense, fertile silence of the earth. You may find that once you strip away the titles, the missions, and the invisible crowns, what remains is something far more precious than a legend. You are a biological miracle, a brief flash of consciousness in a vast and silent universe, capable of love, suffering, and genuine connection. You no longer need to be the one because you have finally become yourself. The weight you have been carrying, the pressure to save, to lead, to be more than human can finally be set down. The world does not need more heroes lost in their own reflections. It needs people who are awake to the reality of the person sitting across from them. The alchemy is complete when the chosen one dies and the human being is born. Look around you. The room is no longer filled with mirrors. The doors have appeared. You are free to walk through them, not as a king entering his kingdom, but as a traveler returning home after a very long and exhausting dream. The mystery was never about finding your destiny. The mystery was always about finding your way back to the ground.